All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a disease that, for a lot of us, probably feels like something straight out of an old novel. A relic of the past. But what if I told you that our deadliest infectious killer isn't some new superbug, but this ancient foe? Today, we're taking a closer look at tuberculosis.
And look, if that's what you were thinking, you are definitely not alone. The author John Green, who's become a huge advocate in this fight, really hits the nail on the head here. He just saw TB as history, right? Something that happened to people in books, not something happening right now. But that's a really common and really dangerous misconception.
Because this is the reality. 1.3 million. That's how many people died from tuberculosis just last year. It is the deadliest infectious disease in the world. And honestly, it's been that way for most of human history. So here's the central question. How can a disease of the past be killing this many people right now? That's the paradox we're going to unpack.
To really wrap our heads around this paradox, we have to move beyond the big numbers. We need a human story. And that's where we meet a young man whose life pretty much embodies this entire struggle against TB today. His name is Henry.
When John Green first met Henry, he thought he was maybe 9 years old, the same age as his own son. But Henry was 17. His growth had been literally stolen by years of not having enough food and a relentless battle with TB. His story isn't just a sad one. It's practically a roadmap that shows us exactly how and why we're failing to stop a disease we know how to cure. We'll be coming back to him.
Now, to understand why this disease is still so hard to fight, we kind of have to go back in time and look at how we've seen it throughout history. Because how we've thought about TB has totally shaped our response to it. Before we knew it was caused by bacteria, we saw it in frankly, a very strange way. It was called consumption. And for a while, it was actually considered a romantic way to die. But make no mistake, it has always been a killer. We found evidence of TB in 9,000-year-old mummies. It's estimated to have killed 1 in every 7 humans who has ever lived. Think about that. The ancient Greeks called it physis, which basically means to wither away. And like Dickens said, it didn't care if you were rich or poor. It came for everyone. And this is where things get really weird. On the one hand, you have the grim reality of the disease. You're wasting away, you're coughing up blood. But in the 19th century, it was seen as this disease of genius and sensitivity. Charlotte Bronte called it a flattering malady, even while her own sister was dying from it. People thought it made you more beautiful. Pale skin, rosy cheeks, big, soulful eyes. And then, bam! A scientific discovery just completely shattered that whole romantic idea. In 1882, a guy named Robert Koch proved that TB wasn't some poetic inherited trait. Nope, it was a germ, an infectious bacterium. And just like that, it wasn't beautiful anymore. It became a disease of poverty, of being crammed into tight spaces. And that discovery kicked off this massive public obsession with hygiene.
So, once we understood what we were actually fighting, it set the stage for the next great chapter in this story, the hunt for a cure. For the very first time, there was real hope that this ancient killer could actually be beaten.
Now, before a real cure existed, this was the best option you had. Patients were sent away to these sanatoria, isolated in places with fresh mountain air. The treatment was, it was basically just rest. You'd have to cure for hours a day, not allowed to talk or move much, just hoping your body could fight it off on its own. For too many people, it couldn't. Then came the scientific miracle. Starting in the 1940s, we didn't just find one drug, we found a whole bunch of them. Doctors figured out that an antibiotic cocktail, taken together, could completely cure TB. It was a total game changer. Hundreds of thousands of people just got up, left the sanatoria, and went home. It really felt like the war was finally over.
But if we won the war in the 1950s, then why are 1.3 million people still dying from it every single year? Well, the answer is brutally complicated because it turns out that having a cure and delivering that cure are two very, very different things.
So what makes it so hard? Well, for one, the treatment is a marathon, not a sprint. We're talking 4 to 6 months of taking multiple pills every single day. And if you miss doses or you stop early, maybe because you start to feel better or you can't afford the bus fare to the clinic, the bacteria can actually evolve. It becomes resistant to the drugs that are supposed to kill it. And that's how you get multi-drug resistant TB, a much deadlier and harder beast to tame. And then you have the economics of it all. We have these amazing diagnostic tools like the Gene Expert machine that can spot TB and check for drug resistance in just a couple of hours. But a single test cartridge can cost more than half of what a country like Sierra Leone spends on a person's entire healthcare for a whole year. It's a tragic, classic problem. The cure is where the disease isn't, and the disease is where the cure isn't. And this brings us right back to Henry. This is exactly what happened to him. He started treatment when he was a kid, but it got interrupted. He developed drug-resistant TB. And when even those second-line drugs started to fail, the newer, better medicines, they just weren't available for him. He wasn't a victim of a medical failure. He was a victim of a system failure.
So, if the drugs by themselves aren't enough, what is? The answer is in what you could call the human cure. It's the nonstop work of activists, healthcare workers, and policymakers who are fighting to build the systems that actually deliver the medicine. And this fight, it really works. Just look at these victories. Activism led to the Global Fund, which is now the single biggest funder of TB programs on Earth. Advocacy groups have secured critical government funding. And just in the last couple of years, people power forced corporations to slash the price of those essential test cartridges and to allow a key drug, bedaquiline, to be made generically, cutting its cost in half. These are not small wins. They save millions of lives.
And this brings us to the final and most crucial point. The ongoing TB crisis isn't a catastrophe because we lack the science. It's a catastrophe because we lack the political and social will. It's the result of choices we all make every day.
As John Green says, this is not a technology problem. We have the tools, we know how to diagnose it, how to treat it, and how to cure it. I mean, we did it in wealthy countries decades ago. The problem isn't a failure of medicine, it's a failure of the systems that we humans build.
And right now, those systems are actively being dismantled. For years, the U.S. was the world's leader in funding the global TB response, but recent drastic cuts to international aid have literally stopped programs in their tracks all over the world. It means there are warehouses full of medicine that just can't get to the patients who desperately need them.
The consequences of walking away from this fight are predictable and they are devastating. Experts are projecting a massive spike in cases, and even more frightening, a rise in those drug-resistant strains that threaten to make our miracle cures totally obsolete, even in wealthy countries. Tuberculosis anywhere is a threat everywhere.
So we're left with this question. We know how to end this. We have the pills, we have the tests, we have the knowledge. That death toll of 1.3 million people a year is not inevitable. It is the result of a collective choice, one that we make through our policies, our funding, and our priorities. The only question is, what are we going to choose next?